This meeting of the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees was previously called to order. The presence of a quorum has been established, and the meeting has been duly called, and the notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight for this December monthly meeting. As always, after we reconvene from executive session, we'll start out with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Harrison, it is your night.
Bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this amazing district and all the wonderful students and staff that make it is what it is. We are thankful for you having blessed us with amazing teachers who pour their life into these children, and we are forever grateful. Lord, thank you for these special people who I serve with. Help us, and may you give us guidance tonight to make right and just decisions with you in mind. Jesus, you are the light of the world, and as we celebrate your birth, may we begin to see the world in your light of understanding, which you give us. Lord, keep our staff, students, and families over the winter break safe, and help us to continue to be responsive followers of your messages, gracious leaders within our community, and to continually strive to follow your messages and lessons, Lord. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Harrison. We do have some action items to handle out of executive session, and the only one we have is the possible action to approve the termination of the Chapter 21 probationary employment contract of Ashley Sneed. Do I have a motion on that item?
Mr. President, I move that the board terminate the Chapter 21 probationary contract of Ashley Sneed for abandonment of her position as previously proposed by the board. All required notices have been provided, and there has been no request for a hearing by the statutory deadline.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motions carry. The motion carries. Now we have special recognitions. Best part of every meeting.
Yep.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Crawford. We want to begin the special recognition portion of our meeting tonight by announcing our December District Students of the Month. The elementary student of the month is Alan Reyes, a third grade student at the Wayne Debo Shears Center for Exceptional Programs. Unfortunately, Alan is not able to join us tonight, and we are going to present him with his certificate and his medal at a later date when he is able to be present. Our secondary student of the month is Nathan Hill, a 10th grader at Early College High School. At this time, please join me in watching a brief video about this outstanding student. Throughout the school year, we see successful student outcomes happening all around us. Whether in the classroom, on the court, on the field, or across the stage, we celebrate these successes. This is our school district, and these are our students of the month. Let's move on to our district secondary student of the month, Nathan Hill.
Hi, I'm Nathan Hill, and I am the district secondary student of the month for December.
Nathan truly embodies what it means to be an ECHS owl. He is always willing to help teachers and classmates.
I think what drew me to come here specifically was that it gave me a different experience than other schools that I had gone to. I knew that it would better prepare me for college, giving us some sort of experience with college, putting us in that environment.
Nathan has a creative side. He actively participates in TJC theater productions while keeping his grades up at ECHS.
When I was doing my interview for early college, our Dean of Students, Mr. Haas, he brought up the fact that as a student at early college, we would be able to be involved with things at TJC, like theater, and that intrigued me a little bit, so I was like, I might as well take advantage of that.
Nathan is particularly fond of his EDUC class, which is a college framework class. His teacher, Miss Lisa Ellis, explains how fortunate she is to have him as a student.
It's been a privilege and an honor to be Nathan's teacher. When he was in the two performances at TJC, you would never know that he had been in a performance because he would come to class with a positive attitude. He had all of his assignments. He was always prepared, and he always has a smile on his face. So he's just an amazing student.
Let's congratulate these students as we continue to reflect successful student outcomes throughout the district. Sponsored by Christus Trinity Mother Francis Health System. And at this time, we'll invite the board down in front. And Nathan, if you don't mind coming forward so that you can receive your award. We're very proud of you. Congratulations. Yep. Got to make you look good. There you go. Congratulations again, Nathan. Also during our special recognitions, at this time we would like to recognize Celine Macias. She is a senior at Tyler High School for creating the artwork for the 2022 District Christmas card. And if you look behind you, if you have not received a Christmas card, this is what her artwork looks like. And if you want to go ahead and come on forward so we can recognize you. We appreciate your creativity. It is quite an honor. On all of the Christmas cards that sent out, it does say who the artist is, and that is such an honor. Speaking of artists, we did want to go ahead and share with you some of the honorable mentions that we have over here to the right that are hanging in our boardroom this evening. This is Ariana Fondrini. She's in 8th grade from Three Lakes. We have Alexis Montoya, 10th grade at Tyler High School. Regina Mendez, 10th grade at Tyler Legacy. Olivia Rainey, Tyler Legacy. Alexa Allen, Tyler Legacy. And then Ellen Morris, 5th grade at Caldwell Arts Academy. So we did want to give them an honorable mention as well because they produced some beautiful work there as well. Tonight, we are going to celebrate our December District Teacher of the Month, and I'm going to ask Christina Hastings, an ESL teacher at Moore MST Magnet School, to come forward as I read a few comments from her principal. So Christina, please come forward. I'm going to keep reading. As a lead ESL teacher at Moore, serving 507 students, Mrs. Hastings goes above and beyond to support her students. She represents what we want our teachers to be for our kids. She is the epitome of a District Teacher of the Month, from her dedication and commitment to the 2nd Annual Community Multicultural Fair, the impact of the event, the relevance toward our district mission, and the number of groups who collaborated, and the great initiative required for Mrs. Hastings to dream up, design, and execute this event. She is very deserving of this recognition. Thank you again for all you do for the students of Tyler ISD, and this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations once again to everybody who received a special recognition. Moving down the agenda, we have a public hearing on the 2022 School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, another educational acronym known as FIRST, our first report. For our district status of 2020 and 2021.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I'll go through this as quickly as I can.
That was quick. Good job.
Don't you have it memorized?
Yeah.
Did I push something wrong? Okay.
We might have a hard copy. You have a hard copy?
Which deputy superintendent is responsible for technology? Oh. Gee. In case the public doesn't know, Tasha Bjork, our chief financial officer, deputy superintendent of finance and operations. Tasha, how long have you been with Tyler ISD?
I'm in my 24th year.
24th year. Okay. Tyler product.
Well, I guess I can go over some of these
Why
without.
don't you go ahead and get started?
Okay.
Yeah, we have
So
our hard
keep in
copy in your
mind,
packet.
this is like last year's data, the end of 2021, it lags like a year and 3 months. But we just now got final notification. But the first 5 indicators are either yes, no. And if you don't pass, you fail the first rating. And those are a yes, no answer. The indicators are, did you file the annual financial report in a timely manner? Did you have an unmodified opinion in the annual financial report by the external auditor? Were we in compliance with the payment terms of all debt agreements at fiscal year end? Did we make timely payments to TRS, Texas Workforce Commission, IRS, and other government agencies? And then was our average change in fund balances less than a 25% decrease? Or did we exceed 75 days of operational expenditures? So those 5 indicators we did pass. The next ones are on a point system, and you can get a maximum of 10 points. And so I'll go through that. Indicator 7 was the number of days of cash on hand and current investments in the general fund sufficient to cover operating expenditures. And as you can see, I have 2021 and 1920. We had 134% cash in order to cover operating expenditures. 8, the measure of current assets to current liabilities ratio sufficient to cover short-term debt. And we got 8 points on this because we were at 2.74 times, and you have to be at 3. But that's 2 points less than we got in 1920. The next one is, did our revenues equal or exceed expenditures? And we had a good year, so yes, it did. The next indicator 10, they're not scoring it due to COVID. 11, the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets sufficient to support long-term solvency. And again, on this one, we got 8 points. We're at 63%, and you must be less than 60. The 3 that we got 8 points on all have to do with our debt. and the level of debt. The next one's the same. The debt per $100 of assessed value on the property values sufficient to support future debt repayments. We have 4.45, and you have to be less than 4. Indicator 13.
But that, Tasha, that number's less than the year before, though,
Yes,
right?
mhm. And it'll probably go down
Yeah.
again.
Okay. But being less on that one's positive.
Right.
Okay.
And with property values going up, it's obviously going to improve for 22, 23. The administrative cost ratio, this one's really good. Our administrative cost ratio actually went down in 2021. We're at 5.59%, and the standard for districts our size is 8.55%. So what that means is at central office, we're way under the expenditure level based on our size.
And the ratio is administrator to student?
No, this is administrators like at central office, like Dr. Crawford, myself, payroll, purchasing, HR, those departments.
Right.
And it's just it's the expenditure ratio.
Okay.
Base our expense over total.
Okay.
And the indicator 14 is just, did you not have a 15% decline in the student to staff ratio over 3 years? We've had little decreases, and it's insignificant. Indicator 15 was not scored again because of COVID, because we had no idea about pupil projections and what would happen. On indicator 16 is when we file our PEIMS data, does it result in an aggregate variance of less than 3%? And we passed that. The next two have to do with external auditors' reports. Did the annual financial report, was it free of any instances of material weaknesses and internal controls? And then also, was it free of any instances of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? And there were no material weaknesses. Indicator 19, did we post the required financial information on website for the laws in effect during that school year? And yes, we did. Indicator 20, did the school board members discuss the district's property values at a board meeting within 120 days before the district adopted its budget? And we did. The next page, we met 11 of the 11 indicators with 94 of 100 possible points, and we answered yes to all the other 8 indicators. Therefore, we had a superior achievement rating. Just a few other minor things we're required to go over. The superintendent's contract is on the website for review. And then when you flip the page to that, we're required to show expense reimbursements for board members and Dr. Crawford, and that's listed on that page. And then other compensation for the superintendent from outside, there's none. And then we have to check on if you as board members receive gifts from an outside entity that the district operates with of 250 or more, and you did not. And then if the board members have any business transactions with the school district, none of you do. And then we're required to report the next quarter after this one of the expenditures for financial solvency. And additional questions, did we draw down funds from a short-term note? No, we haven't done that in a long time. Do we have A total general fund balance of less than 2% of total expenditures, no. Have we declared financial exigency within the past 2 years? No. And how many superintendents have we had in the last 5? 1. And how many business managers in the last 5? 1. And that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Bjork. Do we have any questions as a board?
Just proud to see indicated 13 was administrative cost ratio less than the threshold ratio. That does include salaries, et cetera, and everything else?
Everything.
'Cause
Legal
you-
fees.
Okay.
Anything that we have it in central office,
Okay.
except for instructional.
You know, because you'll get comments that we are administratively top-heavy. I'm sure you've heard that before. So this indicates basically that we are not,
No.
and if we are, we're not paying them very well, so.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the common things I've heard on in my 10 years at the board, and I always, initially was asking about it, and over those 10 years, Dr. Crawford has really leaned up administration costs, and you said the average was 8.5% or something?
Well, we're at 5.59%.
We're at 5.5, but
The standard is 8.55.
Right, yeah, so
So you're saying there's a 3%? No, I'm just kidding.
okay, anybody else have any questions or comments?
Apologize for the technology, y'all. We're having to go to 1980s and just have to do it off your handhelds. So apologize for that. The public can't see this stuff.
How long has
There
the
we go.
first rating been going on?
I think we're on year 20,
How many years have we gotten superior?
all of them.
20? Okay. I knew that. Good job, we
Thank
appreciate it.
you for your work. We appreciate
Tasha,
it.
before you get up, the back end of the report, just so the board's aware, those are just things that you're required to post, but they don't count towards you one way or the other in the scoring, correct?
No.
Okay.
We're just required to discuss
Yeah.
them.
And I know whenever you're in Tyler and you just look at our website and people think, they either can't find stuff or there's a lot of stuff on there and it's hard to dig through it. There's a lot of school systems that do the bare minimum on the website. For instance, superintendent's contract, you can't find those on every school district website. They choose to do it or not do it. We choose to put that on there, just like we do a lot of other
Right,
our financial stuff. Okay.
We have a financial transparency link at the very bottom, and
Right.
it has tons of information.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I will say, and this is a little off subject, but I will say that I've grown accustomed to our website and being able to find things, and for work, I was in another county, I won't mention, and it was a county entity. I mean, I couldn't even find an agenda for a meeting. It was really, really, really hard. So, thank you and the board for, operating in a transparent way, financially and many other ways as well.
I think that was Mr. Bergfield 1.0. CRSS, I think that's when that occurred. Gina came on board at that time too, so it's been going on for a while.
Okay, any other questions for Mrs. Bjork before she gets up? Thank you. Okay, now, this is not our normal public participation right here, but we have to have an opportunity for a public or board comments on that first report, okay? So I think the board has commented, but if anybody in the public wants to comment specifically on that report right now, feel free. Doesn't sound like anybody wants to comment on the first report. Okay, but we do have public participation coming up. I'm not skipping over it, I promise. We do have another report, a continuous improvement in student outcomes, update on state accountability redesign.
So Dr. Lance Gropel and Dr. James Cureton, Deputy Superintendent of Administration, and then Director of Assessment and Accountability, are going to provide yet another update to the board about the state accountability redesign. The why are we putting this in front of y'all with such frequency is this is a pretty big deal. And every time that these little updates come across here with brevity, remember, no more than 3 to 5 slides, 3 to 5 bullets per slide. And don't read every slide because these folks are educated up here. Give them a brief presentation, give y'all a brief presentation on what's kind of coming down the pike for the assessment of our students, i.e. the STAR redesign. They're calling it a refresh, like it's not a new test. It is a new test. Dr. Curitan, your opportunity.
Well, good evening, Dr. Crawford. Board of Trustees, thank you for giving us a chance to provide an update. So we'll get through this as quick and painlessly as possible. We're going to actually start out with STAR scores really quickly. If you recall, a few months ago, we actually showed you some of the changes that are coming in STAR. We do just briefly want to touch on the timeline of those STAR scores because it is going to be a little bit different than we've seen in prior years. With the change in the STAR test that Dr. Crawford's referring to, they're going to have to reset the standard of what an approaches test is and what a meets test is versus a master's test. So we'll be looking at a slightly different timeline this year compared to prior years. We'll start to get some trickle of what scores are, like what a raw score is for a student in June to July. But we won't receive our traditional STAR scores that we can discuss in final form probably until about August, unless this changes. So usually when they have a new test like this, we have to reset the standard, and that always takes a substantial amount of time. So we're probably looking at a delay this year till August, and then we believe the accountability changes, those ratings will be coming in September as of now. Just wanted to start out with a refresher of what the overall structure of the accountability system is because it's not going to change. It is considered a 3-domain system. You'll see 4 boxes that all say domain, but the 2 green boxes are really what TA calls domain 2. So you've got domain 1, which is our student achievement. Domain 2A and 2B together collectively make up domain 2, which is student progress. And then domain 3 is closing the gaps. Just to give you some idea of what those are, domain 1 is strictly student performance. So we look at approaches, meets, and masters percentages across all of our tests. Domain 2A is academic growth, which we'll talk about in a minute. Domain 2B is actually relative performance. So we take into account our students, and we take into account our students and their demographics. We ask, how do they perform? And then domain 3 is our closing the gaps domain, where we look at how each of the different student groups perform across several indicators. The overall structure stays the same, so we'll still have those same domains, and then they will be essentially a weighted average will be calculated. If you look at domain 1, 2A, and 2B, the highest of those will be weighted at 70%. So if a campus if growth is where they make the most progress, growth will be weighted at 70%, and then their score in domain 3 will be weighted at 30%. And this will be a 0 to 100 letter grade, just like it's been for the past 5 years. I just wanted to give you a quick timeline. These changes that we are going to discuss, there are some pretty significant changes. We may have more coming down the line. That red arrow is about where we are right now. In terms of what we're still expecting, when we get back in January, we expect to know what the new cut points are. So what does it take to get to an A? What does it take to get to a B or a C this year? After that, probably around spring break, we'll get a new framework. So we'll know what remaining big changes are coming down the pipeline. And then the biggest thing to keep an eye on will be that accountability manual that starts to get published in the spring, but does not finalize until the summer. So we will really not have a firm grasp on exactly what the rules are until the summer. But with that being said, we are going to discuss 5 big changes so far. These are all relevant to our district. We're going to talk about updating of the cut scores across all of our indicators, the elimination of the growth progress measure, domain 3 indicators, how the district calculation will change slightly, which is an important one, and then the inclusion of RDA, which we will talk about, or we usually talk about as PBMAS. So one of the things the agency made clear is that with COVID, they wanted to take into account the effect of COVID on STAR scores and when they were resetting these cut points. So we know cut points are being reset from where they were set back in 2016-17. I put the charts up there, and we don't have to go through all of them, but you can see the impact of COVID in 2020, and the agency wants to account for that. So when they're resetting cut points to get to an A, a B, a C, et cetera, it'll likely be an average of 2019 scores, which were pre-COVID, and then 2022 cut scores, which were last year's STAR scores. And the reason is because the whole state tested both of those years. If you recall, in 2021, the majority of the state did not necessarily test. We do expect all the cut points to be a little bit higher. Again, we'll see once we actually get those scores in January. We are going to see a growth measured in a different way than we have for several years. Historically, if you've never looked at a growth progress measure, you get a chart like this, and that left column tells you how many questions a student got correct. That raw score, that number of questions correct, translates to a scale score or vice versa. And then you have to essentially reference another table to say that student grew 180 points. Did they make 1 year worth of progress? It can be very difficult to estimate locally. You know, if we want to estimate and say this kid's really making growth or not, it's difficult to do that. The agency this year will not be able to use that growth measure because they're going from STAR to the STAR Refresh or STAR 2.0. So those changes are so dramatic, they cannot use this measure of growth. So what that means for us moving forward, not just this year, but moving forward, is we will start to look at growth in this format. So this is called a transition table. And just to orient you into how to look at it, that very left column, the first column, is where a student scored in the prior year. So if you start at the bottom is master's grade level. That's the highest level of performance. And as you go up the table, the level of performance declines. So student can be master's, that's the highest level of performance, then meets, and then usually we would just say approaches, but with growth this year, it's going to be split into low and high approaches. And then our students that did not meet, which means the students that didn't pass the test, that'll be split into low and high as well. And just to orient you to what happens here, if you go to that first column, go all the way to the last row, a student that was at master's. If you go all the way to the right to that last column and go up, that's a student that's going to get master's again this year. So they achieved master's last year, they're going to achieve master's this year. And you can see at the intersection of those two, that row and that column, it's a 1, a green 1. That tells us the student showed growth. So essentially what will happen is we want all of our students to be in those green boxes. It means they're making 1 year worth of progress according to the state. Any students that are in those half boxes, those are students that are maintaining their performance. And then any students in the yellow, according to the state, did not make 1 year worth of academic progress. So this will let us estimate growth just like we want to at the local level. The other big change that we're going to see from this is that our students are accelerated learners, which are students from the prior year that did not pass their STAR test. In particular for growth, we're talking math and reading. Those students are considered accelerated learners. We've got to provide accelerated instruction to those students. We will actually see those students count an additional time or an additional time in domain 2A. So they'll actually count twice with regards to growth compared to, say, our students that were at master's the year before or meets. So it's a little bit different this year with regards to growth. We'll see how that changes once we get our cut scores in January. Before we jump into Domain 3, there's a lot of changes in Domain 3, and I'll just kind of give you the quick of it. If you haven't seen Domain 3 in a while, essentially there's 14 student groups that a campus or a district could have been evaluated on. In addition to the 14 student groups, there were about 7 indicators. So the number of indicators any campus or district could be evaluated on was always very large, 71 essentially. To try to get away from that, the agency really wants to narrow the focus. So if you look at that chart up there across the top, those are the student groups that we could now be evaluated on. It's actually all of the same student groups, but if you look at that yellow group that says high focus, you'll see that group is now going to be composed of any student that's economically disadvantaged, any of our emergent bilingual, special ed, former special ed, or highly mobile students. So any student that may or that will hit one of those indicators, regardless of whether it's 1 or hits all 5, will be in that group. Essentially a high focus group for us to make sure we're moving. We will be evaluated off 2 of our lowest performing racial or ethnic groups from the prior year. So we'll have to make sure, again, that we're moving all of our student groups and trying to close those gaps. Probably the biggest change that we'll see this year is that the number of students to make a group where we are evaluated on that group is going to go from 25 to 10. So if we have 10 students in any one group, we'll now have to make sure that that group is one that's going to go into the calculations somewhere.
That's on a campus too,
Correct.
not just the district, because
Correct.
we have them all.
We have them all.
But there are some campuses that have very small, single ethnicity student pops. They will be counted if they reach the 10 threshold.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep, and in some cases, like that bottom indicator, it says accelerated learning because that's what the agency was doing, but really it's a domain 1 indicator. Kids can essentially be included in there multiple times. So then you start getting to the number of tests versus number of students, but absolutely. So that will go from 25 to 10, so we'll see more of our student groups count with this methodology. We'll also see a change in how these are indicated. So in prior years, it was simply yes or no. Did your African-American students hit their academic achievement indicator, their score, whatever that score was? And it was yes or no. So if you were a 1/10 of a point off, you missed the indicator. If you were a 1/10 of a point over, you hit it. Now what'll happen is we'll be graded on a system, so it'll be a 0 to 4 outcome. 4 points is the maximum you can earn. 0 is if you don't make any progress. And so we'll see a change with how that scaling fits into domain 3. One of the other biggest changes or most impactful changes I think we'll see this year is going to be the change to the district calculation methodology. Historically, a district was evaluated just like a campus. So every student that was in the district on the last Friday in October, and then that also tested in our district, that student would go towards the calculation of the district's accountability scores. That will now change. What's going to now happen is the 3rd through 12th grade enrollment of every single campus will be used to weight that campus's rating towards the district rating. So if you look at that example, it shows 5 schools, 5 campuses. Campus 2 has 990 students, and their score was an 85. If you total all the students up at all those campuses, 990 students makes up 41% of that population. So that campus's rating of an 85 will make up 45% of the district rating. Likewise, Campus 3, which is a 77 but only has 62 students, it'll make up only about 3% of the campus's rating. So this methodology will take into account our largest campuses a little bit more than some of our smaller campuses. The other big change we're looking at here, excuse me, is that our campuses for the last 5 years, if they had, for example, 3 Fs or Fs in 3 of their 4 domains, they could not earn a D or higher rating. They would earn only an A. We're going to see a similar rule this year, a 3 Ds rule, as if a campus has Ds in 3 out of 4 domains, then the highest they can earn is a D, regardless of what they have in growth. So if they had an 85 in growth, but they were a D in the other 3 domains, the highest they could earn is a D this year, which is a little bit different. The last change we will touch on is RDA. So if you recall, we usually present RDA, or used to be called PBMAS, to you about once a year. Historically, it was really focused on special education, special POPs, but the agency really wants to work this into the accountability system. So what we're going to see is that this score, this RDA score, is going to go into the district rating as a domain 3B. There's a lot of uncertainty about it because you have to align this system to the accountability system. So it's going to take a while to do this, probably 5 years. So what will happen the next 5 years is it'll be report only. So when we get our accountability reports, we'll see a score for RDA on there, but that score will not go into the calculation of the accountability system, at least not until the next refresh of this system. So, and that's all we have, so we're happy to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, seems pretty simple.
Fair.
Anybody have any questions, or thanks for the report. Anybody have any questions for either of these gentlemen?
I do. logistically, looking at this, now the new START exams will go in effect when?
It's this year.
That's what I
So
thought.
our students that take the test in the spring will take that test.
Okay. And they have not determined all the rules for the results of that test yet.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Has anybody complained about that?
All the
No, no one has. I mean, the thing's gonna have to happen is the legislature's gonna have to get involved.
I know.
So, I mean, right now, the rulemaking authority does rest with TEA. And I think legislators on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers have expressed some concern about this. Typically, whenever you go to a new test and the new calculus, like we're seeing now, you've had a pause year where you can get some what-ifs going, kind of ease into it. But apparently, the interpretation for TEA is that they can go ahead and go full bore into this thing and just call it a refresh, a tweak. Understandably, we got to get better. Continuous improvement is important. 75 districts statewide were labeled as a B, including Tyler ISD. So apparently that's too good. And so we're going to go ahead and go ahead and try to reset that so we can maybe get a little bit better bell curve on what district rating should be. So yes, there's been enough concern and communication about this, especially being thrown on us. We've already kicked off the game. And so now we're making the rules up as we go along. So, yes, sir, there has been some concern.
Do you think it'll be addressed by a legislative session? Because otherwise, it's
Oh, no,
going to be after the fact.
I've been through a bunch of legislative sessions. I think they've got other things on their mind than the STAR test. Even though parents have told them that the STAR test is not high on their priority list of a good education.
I'll just say that, one of the great things about Tyler ISD is we've taken this and made it a part of the way we do things around here. And so I appreciate you guys fighting through it and working through it. I think that's probably the best approach. I will say, though, that it's nice to have a superintendent with some foresight, especially when you start looking at the sub-pops and the ratings. And, we've been trying to target those for a while. And so we're finally making some progress there. And so it just seems like we either saw what was coming or knew what was coming. And so certainly appreciate all the hard work to do that. And then just one quick question. Didn't we talk about benchmarking and trying to figure out a way to maybe talk to some vendors about figuring out ways to measure all this stuff? I can't remember where we were with that.
Yes, we have started some discussion with some vendors that offer different products around benchmarking. We do currently do a benchmark assessment, and we've wrapped those up right before Thanksgiving and have been analyzing the data to create a plan for the second semester. But we are in the shopping phase of looking at different products that can offer the benchmarking, the new item types, and a larger test bank availability for our students to be assessed on, and then some intervention products that go along with that, all bundled into a one-stop shop for our teachers and our principals to have at their disposal.
Yeah, Mr. Martinez, this stuff has trickled out. I mean, we're into December now, and we're still learning something new just about every week in regard to this. So this really wasn't a thing this summer. It is now a thing, and so we're in the market for that. But we've got a crack staff. James is renowned statewide. He's on the Attack-a-Pack. What is that new group called? I can't remember. It's the new accountability.
TAAG tag.
To tag. He's been tagged, which has some interaction with TEA staff and whatnot. So that's great that we have someone firsthand witnessing this stuff as part of the Texas School Alliance. Dr. Curidan's there. And so we do feel good about that. He's an expert and loves this stuff. So I don't know how, but he does. And then our principals are getting really good at this stuff. You know, they've lived it now for, 8 years, and they've really done a good job of either growing up in it as an assistant principal or in our Team One stuff, or actually have survived enough to be able to be pretty effective at the plans that we do have. So I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Martinez, the kind words that you say, but it's really a reflection of our principals and then our teachers. Tier 1 instruction's improving. We've got our chief school officers back there that we really have, Dr. Ward, Ms. Chapa, Dr. Davis. We're really appreciative of them as leading our campuses too. So there's a lot of accolades to go around because we share in that accountability. I will say that after looking at this data, when you presented some of the stuff about the the new gap closures, and then the 3 Ds to a D, we're gonna come up with so many internal sayings. I can't wait for this. It's always fun. But we only had one campus that didn't score a 70 or better in their gap closure, which in Tyler ISD, that hasn't always been the case. So we had a good year last year, and then this last year we only had one campus that would have had a 3 Ds to a D no matter what. It was the same campus, and they were really close, but really good, and really proficient saying that. We're looking at our North Star goal, looking at Domain A, everybody being a B or an A in Domain 1. We haven't released that yet, but we're working with system of great schools. If everybody can get to a B or A in Domain 1, everything else usually takes care of itself. And that is just pure rock solid student achievement without worrying about growth, even though we're going to focus on that, et cetera. So those are some tidbits. Another little morsel of an hors d'oeuvre for you, an appetizer. When we do provide you the snapshot of what our benchmark looks like, we felt really good about where we're at in regard to mathematics. Remember, math, out of the blue, kind of surprised us this last year to where we did not perform as well, but we've made tremendous gains in mathematics. In reading, it's been kind of flat. But remember, we had a really good bump last year in reading scores. So there's a little bit of a preview for there on that. Now, when you start throwing in what's the specialized term for writing now?
Extended Constructed Response, ECR.
ECR, Extended Constructive Response. We've got some work to do on that. So when you pair that with your reading scores, your writing, we've got some work to do on that. So, but I've talked to some other superintendents, and I think they're feeling worse about it than I am. But in saying that, there's a little bit of a preview there that it looks like we're on track to have a competitive year while we're kind of going through all this uncertainty, again, with the test and the assessment.
I have a question about benchmarks. So the benchmarks they just took right before Thanksgiving, were those new that are looking more like the new STAR? So they definitely have some of the new.
Yes, they did have new item types that were on there. They should have had questions similar to
Okay.
in the format that they would see just on the material that they had covered up to this point.
Judging from some of the scores I heard about from some of the kids, I know. It sounds like they had some new stuff in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Threw them for a curve.
I was pretty surprised when I heard some of that.
I mean,
So that was my assumption.
I mean, walking into the assessment day, knowing the Pythagorean theorem instead of saying, hey, here's a list of formulas for you to use, that's going to be a shift change, a sea change on how we do stuff. Now, it's going to be, we're going to have, think of the SAT. I mean, the psychometrics of this test, the way they've been designed, is if we're not all going to take the SAT and the ACT, you're really going to get challenged with the new STAR.
Squared plus B squared equals C squared.
There you go.
You know, I'd said before that I wanted the district to be an A rating. I know that's going to set us back a little bit. I'm really, our teachers do a very great job, and I know that. But I know that also that they are under stress right now. So we are, and they've taken it really as a challenge, and it's a difficult challenge. And I think we just need to let them know we really appreciate what they're doing and how difficult it can be going into a new test, but the guidelines haven't even been set up yet.
Yeah, no doubt. They need to turn their phones off starting Friday at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. and enjoy their 16 days off and not worry about this. Yeah.
Well, anybody else have any comments or questions? Thank you. Thanks for the report. Okay, now we are to public participation. And we have two speakers tonight, and since it's Christmas season, usually we're like 5 minutes, but if you need a couple extra minutes to say what you need to say, Ms. Melantree, you can come on up and say it. Beverly Melantree.
Thank you.
And if you want to stand, you can stand. If you want, either one is fine. Sure.
A crack for.
Oh, no.
So I'm still healing. Thank you. To President Washman, Vice President Martinez, Mr. Newsom, Mrs. Atkins, Dr. Nation, Mrs. Harrison, Mr. Burkfield, Secretary Orr, and Dr. Crawford. Good evening. My name is Beverly D. Melantree. I'm a proud graduate of the Tyler Independent School District. I graduated in the top 5% of my class from Dogan Junior High in 1976 and the top 10% from John Tyler High in 1979. I continued my educational career at Tyler Junior College, where I graduated summa cum laude with an Associate of Arts degree in 1980. Afterwards, I attended and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science from Texas A&M University in Commerce in 1983 with honors. Approximately 7 years later, I received a doctorate of jurisprudence from the University of Houston Bates School of Law in 1990. I've been a practicing attorney for 32 years. On January the 20th, 1995, I was inducted into the Tyler Independent School District Sports Hall of Fame. I'll give you a brief overview of my resume to say that the teachers at my junior high and high school were instrumental in my life, along with my parents. They prepared me for academics and life, especially when it came to sports, and learning how to play as a team. I personally thank my tennis coach, Mr. Stan Smith, and basketball coach, Mrs. Peggy Wagstaff Smith. For example, they taught me the twos of the responsibility of being a team player in regards to the team and coach as a whole. Importantly, I was taught it was not about me. It was not always about winning, but the building of character and the understanding and acceptance of defeat. So I clearly understand the coaches and players' relationship when it comes to Coach Holmes and his players. Not only is Coach Holmes my friend, but his wife, Mrs. Vanessa Holmes, is my family through my brother-in-law, the late Coach Michael Ray Johnson. So when in trouble, according to my dad and mom, family members come together, and therefore I come to speak on behalf of Coach Holmes, my family member. I'm fully aware that Coach Holmes resigned on December the 2nd, 2022, but we are still not done in regards to his resignation when it comes to our next head football coach, the status of the existing coaching staff, and the athletic programs at Tyler High. As a child, I remember long nights the school board members, superintendent, and parents held when there were concerns amongst the entire community. Concerned citizens or parents' time to speak were not limited to a certain amount of minutes because the board members knew the importance of letting people speak and be heard. Back in those days, with Superintendent Jim Plyler and Dr. Martin L. Edwards II, my dad and his crew had an open dialogue with the board members and superintendent. They were not only respected and well organized, but they were heard when matters had an impact on their children's education or even teachers' careers. Whatever was of grave concern to the community, those leaders were present to speak. They were our voice. They were never ignored or turned away, but always accomplished their goals while being the minority because the entire board worked with them. However, presently, some of you on this board seem not to recognize a value in interacting with concerned parents and citizens from the North Talla community. For instance, I personally sent each of you a letter requesting that the discussion regarding Coach Holmes' pending termination be placed on the agenda for the December 12th meeting, which is today. Also, in my correspondence, I asked that the termination of Coach Holmes be suspended until the December 12th meeting. I learned that some of you agreed with the suggestion, but Mr. Priest proceeded with his plans to officially announce the termination of Coach Holmes on December the 5th. Nevertheless, Coach Holmes wisely resigned on December the 2nd to forego the tarnishment of his impeccable reputation and football record. Even though Coach Holmes resigned, my request still should have been placed on the agenda because there are other matters that need to be addressed regarding Coach Holmes' existing coaching staff and the football program at Talla High. During this entire process, I learned that in this present forum, none of you have to answer any of my questions. But if this matter is placed on the agenda, then by law, you have to converse with me. However, presently, you have suppressed my voice. Please be mindful that I too am a taxpayer. And for me not to receive 2 votes and just 1 call out of the 7 board members clearly shows nothing but your disrespect to Coach Holmes, the North Talla community, and me. You have suppressed my voice to interact with you, and therefore I ask that these matters be placed on the agenda. As stated earlier, there are several questions that need to be addressed and answered, not behind closed doors or hidden promises of favors, but before the public in an open forum. We need to know and be abreast of the selection process for our new head football coach, or else we will be giving someone of Mr. Priest's choice and not the North Talla community choice and input. Mr. Priest will select the next head football coach without our input. Quite honestly, this process is unacceptable, and if either you go along with what he tells you to do in regards to our next head football coach, then your actions show that you could care less about the Talla High football program or even our voices. It's my opinion that we need someone not from within to be our next head football coach, but someone from the outside to keep our football program intact. For instance, the resignation of Coach Holmes has caused a problem from within the Talla football program. Specifically, a problem exists amongst the football players and the existing coaching staff. Anyone chosen from the existing coaching staff will cause the departure of several football players. Therefore, it is important that you hear us and them. When a person remains silent and let things happen, when he or she is not in agreement with it, then his or her silence is a sign of acceptance. Clearly, with me speaking to you, I hope you understand that I'm concerned about the future of our football program, the selection of a head football coach, and the existing coaching staff. Likewise, I hope you all have the same concerns as me. In closing, I'm troubled by Coach Holmes' forced resignation and the future of so many football players. For instance, the football players in TISD, local private schools, and surrounding school districts will now have Coach Holmes as an advocate to help them secure athletic scholarships to colleges, just like you received, Mr. Burkfield, to attend SMU when you played at Robbie Lee High School. I'm troubled by Coach Holmes' forced resignation because relationships will never be repaired amongst family members, and trust and respect might not exist amongst the parents, the North Tyler community, and football players regarding each of you as you are moving forward with the replacement of the head football coach position at Tyler High School if you fail to listen to us. We would like transparency of this entire process of replacing Coach Holmes. For instance, will the new head football coach bring in his own staff? Or will the existing coaching staff have to interview for their jobs? Or will the coaches who want to stay in Tyler be placed at other schools? Like we need to know, they too need to know. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a black or white issue. This is about working together for our children. As concerned parents and citizens, we must be a part of the conversation with each of you in order to begin the healing and hiring process. Therefore, for a second time, I ask that I receive the 2 votes necessary for this matter to be placed on the agenda in order for us all to discuss the future of our football program, the existing coaching staff, and the hiring process for the next head football coach at Tyler High. Thank you, President Washman, for listening to my concerns along with the board members, and your time is deeply appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Joseph McCullough. You got a couple of patient young ones back there.
They're great. Thank you, girls. All right, the seat looked comfy, and I liked being in the middle, so we'll do that. Okay, so unfortunately, first, I do have to begin by expressing some disappointment and the lack of response regarding the teacher satisfaction survey I sent out to all of you as an example one from Round Rock ISD. Last time I gave public comment, I discussed the merits of giving our teachers a chance to voice their concerns and have the public aware of their grievances in an anonymous way that's safe for them. But there is another matter to discuss today. This happens to deal with the Texas legislature, and you might wonder why that relates to you, but I will get to that. So SB 176 has been proposed, and it is essentially public funding of private schools. And I believe everyone in this room should be concerned, including taxpayers. So what does this have to do with you all? It's the legislature, right? Like, how does it relate? I would say in general, good managers go to bat for those that they manage, and the school board is a body corporate and is responsible for managing the district. So I believe you must also advocate for public education. It's not in your job description, but sometimes the job description grows. You can ask teachers how they feel about HB 4545, for example. So I would implore that you read the bills, consult your attorney, make the phone calls and schedule sit-downs with our reps. So what exactly is happening with SB 176? So it deallocates money from the foundation school program. So the foundation school program, the FSP, I'm sure your CFO's explained that already before the public. It's basically the infrastructure established in statute for dispersing public funds to school districts. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, so this is just my layman's summary. But if you take a look at the latest report from the FSP website, it states that TISD's M&O tax revenue for this latest report was $100 million just for the M&O. And the FSP funding for 2023 from this last generated report is $45 million. So that means $45 million is coming from the state with regards to maintenance and operations, and $100 million is coming from local tax revenue. So $45 million, that is very significant, and that is exactly what is at stake. So that money coming from the state is in jeopardy it's in jeopardy of being allocated to private schools. And I feel like until this district can budget a $10,000 raise for each of their staff, then I don't think there's any money that could possibly be lost. So we can't afford to sit by and let it go unopposed. So once again, I would say consult your attorney and CFO to educate yourself on exactly how SB 176 would impact the district. There's a lot of really gnarly stuff going on in there. For example, there is a establishment of a educational assistance organization. Basically, the comptroller is going to be siphoning funds from the FSP, and then this non-government organization is going to be able to work with the comptroller in order to help administer this. So that's an entire layer of administrative overhead that the FSP is actually going to be paying for. So what would normally go to the district, it's going to be going to this administrative overhead bloat. And oddly enough, the comptroller is going to be able to solicit private donations for this program. That seems a bit strange. It seems a bit right for kickbacks. So I would request, contact House Rep Matt Schaefer, contact the Texas Senate Rep Brian Hughes, even your State Board of Education Rep Kevin Ellis. You should probably consult the attorney on your speaking capacity because the Texas Education Code does say that, like, unless you're authorized by the board, a member of the board should not act on behalf of the board, so you'll need to be careful with what your communication constitutes. But you need to say something. See something, say something. The budget, the finances of the district are at stake, so you can't just let that go by without saying anything. So I'm hoping to be able to rely on you to say something, and I will also be in Austin speaking on SB 176 whenever it comes to the floor, and I hope I see some of you there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCullough. All right, moving on from public participation, we have the approval of minutes. We have a board workshop from November 3rd, and then our regular meeting on November 14th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries, minutes are approved. Moving on to business, legal, finance, and
Hey,
consent.
Mr. Washman?
Yes,
I hate to make you go back on that, but you were kind of rolling through that pretty quick.
don't worry about it.
There are some corrections that do need to be made on the agendas.
Okay.
On the minutes. And I think the easiest way to go about that is to, the errors that we caught in here, there's,
On the November 14th minutes, they should all say that they were approved at 7:00.
Mhm.
There's a few, they should all say that they're approved at 7:00.
Right.
And there's a few spots that say 6:00.
So-
those need to be correct.
And that's just on November 14th?
Yes.
So should we entertain a motion
an amendment,
Amended.
as,
a motion to amend or correct?
Okay.
Okay.
so do we need to hear a motion to correct to,
I make a motion, we correct the votes from, that are 6-0 to 7-0 in the minutes from the 14th.
thank you.
Second.
All board members were present at that meeting.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries, the amended motion carries. So are we good now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the minutes are corrected and approved. Moving on to this consent agenda, we wanted to pull and table item C because we needed a little clarification on that. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to do just that on item C.
Motion to pull and table 12C.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries. Item C is pulled and tabled, or it's just tabled. And then, so now we have items A, B, and D. And do I have a motion on those items?
I move that we approve items A, B, and D.
Thank you, Dr. Nation. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Only two items on this curriculum instruction consent agenda. Do I have a motion on those two items?
Motion to approve item 13.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, now we have a quarterly investment report.
Ms. Bjork, it's been a quarter since we last reported on investments. Anything you'd like to say to the board about the quarterly investment report? They've got it in front of them.
How much?
For one quarter, we earned about $758,000 in interest on our bond fund for Hubbard and Early College. So that'll go into that project and help forward.
Great. Okay, any questions? You can always ask now or ask Tasha later if there's something that catches your eye. Now, we do have for discussion the district calendar for 23 and 24. First reading, it's always fun to put it before everybody. Dr. Crawford, do you care to say anything about it right now, or just want to kind of let us chew on it for a little bit?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I've been looking forward to this all day. First, let me tell the board and the public and the community on behalf of our teachers and our staff, thank you for the 16 days that they're about to receive here at Christmas break. Not too many professions in the world can you look at the opportunities that we have for a little bit of refreshment and rejuvenation, and boy, do we need it. Mr. Newsom, you brought that up earlier. Our teachers have been working extremely hard, so thank you all for that. Let's go ahead and go. Let's start in August. August, teachers will come back. Now, remember, this is not all teachers, but teachers will come back beginning on the 7th of August. We'll have convocations somewhere in there on the 11th, so that's a Friday, correct? Okay, that's good. And then we'll have a midweek start the first week of school. We've done that sometimes when we can. Sometimes we do it when we can't do it because of some of our goals. Remember, our goals are we want to finish by Memorial Day. Our teachers have overwhelmingly and consistently said that we want to be done by Memorial Day. They like anywhere from 16 to 19 days off around Christmas time, 9 days off at spring break, 9 days off at Thanksgiving. Those are full weeks. We do count the weekends, by the way. So being able to get through by Memorial Day allows us to start a little bit here in the middle of August as opposed to the very end of August. In September, there's that Labor Day. In October, you'll see 1 day off there on October 16th. That's actually Professional Development Day. By the way, these little days off for students, we will not observe a half day. The day before the Friday we get out for professional development, we had some really poor attendance rates, specifically from some campuses that I may or may not be attached to with my own kids. Very disappointing that, oh, we're not doing anything, we're just not going to go to school that day. Well, we need to get all we can instead of counting that for a day and only going to school for half a day. We need to make sure that we're going to school. So there's that little green spot there on October. In November, there's Thanksgiving, as we're very appreciative of having those 9 days to give thanks. December, Christmas break, there's an early release day on the 15th, so there is one early release day. It's at the end of the semester. We'll do the same thing at the end of the school year as well. But we actually get observed Christmas break from the 18th through the actual 1st. The 1st is on a Monday this coming year. We'll have a work day on the 2nd, and then here we go with a 3-day week for students that week as well. Martin Luther King Day on the 15th is traditionally observed here in Tyler ISD. February 2024, you have a professional development day or work day. It's professional development day on the 12th of February. And then March, spring break is 11th through the 15th. Have we checked with TJC on that? have any update on that. Okay, we will more than likely align ourselves with that. That's kind of a weird deal since there's an actual day in March that week before, so we'll see what happens right there. We may have something different coming back to you during that time. April Fool's Day, we actually have a day off that day. That actually pairs up with Easter weekend. And as traditionally observed here in Tyler ISD, we will take Good Friday off. It is not going to have this cute little circle next to it, so that the superintendent doesn't feel any pressure when he goes and drives roads about whether or not that's going to be a bad weather day or not. Good Friday is Good Friday, and we're going to observe Good Friday. It was one of my year one fun with driving roads. May of 2024, the last day of school is on the 24th. That's a half day. Memorial Day is the 27th, so goal accomplished there. They've got some opportunities there on professional development and some makeup days. Those are probably going to be contractual makeup days on the 29th and 30th if we have bad weather days. As usual, I'd get out and drive the roads along with the transportation staff, along with some of the deputy superintendents to make sure that we're making the right calls when we can when we get some of that frozen precipitation. We try to stay away from that. How many days, well, I don't want to talk about how many days, but I have cushion built in here in regard to the professional development waivers, et cetera, things that we can apply for in Austin. We've got enough cushion in here to where we do not have to identify bad weather makeup days for instruction post Memorial Day. Those are always poor attendance days, and Ms. Atkins, Dr. Nation, as former teachers, y'all know that preparing for those days is somewhat difficult as a teacher. Any questions about the calendar? Anything y'all'd like for us to take a look at from the dais?
I just saw Rise and Early College on the same day, the graduations.
Yes, we had a suggestion from the dais here about looking at graduation on the same day. We are looking at the venue for that, of being as opposed to being the auditorium at Tyler High, actually being the Lions Den. A little bit more spacious, a little bit more comfortable for individuals, and indoor, we can certainly stay away from the rain. So we're looking at like a 6 o'clock start for one and 8 o'clock start for the other as well.
Very good. I'm sure, people will have thoughts, as they always do, but is there anything in here that just greatly varies from anything we've traditionally been doing over the past few years?
I think teaching staff enjoyed their little fall, winter breaks, and we just couldn't make them fit in here. We did have some proposals in there, and it just didn't work out for us.
Okay.
So nothing that we have consistently, traditionally enjoyed. Every now and then we can make a little tweak or two from year to year based upon when the first day of school could actually be when the last day of school is. Again, protecting that Christmas, Thanksgiving, spring break, and getting out before Memorial Day, that's always been our goals from the calendar committee.
Okay,
Teachers and principals are represented on that calendar committee, by the way.
good deal. Any comments or questions regarding the calendar? First reading? Okay, future business, January 12th, board workshop, January 23rd, regular meeting. And having said that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. Ayes have it, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.